My name is Miss Niska, and today I will be telling you about RTI. But before we get started, I'd like everyone to please stand up and count off by 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1,
2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1,
2, 3, 4. Okay, now all the 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s, please sit down. Okay, number 1, we represent about 20% of our class. Now try to imagine what school would be like if you were one of the 20% whose studies have shown struggle to understand fundamental concepts that keep you from reaching your full potential. What would that mean for your education, your self-esteem, or your future? Thank you guys. Sit down. These thoughts lead me to today's topic, which is RTI. Is anyone familiar with RTI? Do you give a little bit of information about what you do?
RTI is a 3-tier intervention plan where you, tier 1, you slowly implement different interventions to help the student. If they, I have a special ed side of it because for learning disabilities, if they don't reach their goals in tier 1, they go to a more difficult tier, and it's more like individual structure. And then if they don't become well with that, tier 3 is basically special ed.
Yes, it is a 3-tiered system, and it deals with I guess it can be for behavior, and it can also be for learning. So before we get started, I'll just give you a brief overview of what we'll be covering. First, we're going to identify the 4 core concepts of RTI and discuss a little bit about each of those. And we're going to learn about the 3-tier intervention and the impact that RTI has had on the schools in Wisconsin. So before class, I sent a link to a short video. Does anybody remember any of the 4 concepts? It was a while back. I jumped the gun a little bit on that one. Does anybody remember those concepts? Well, in case you don't remember, the first one is effective instruction. We have effective instruction, frequent assessment, immediate response, and collaboration. So we're just going to talk a little bit about each of these before we move on to the next portion. So effective instruction is comprised of a multi-level system, and it is based on the scientific research of AIR, and it's the American Institute of Research, and it's delivered through differentiated instruction, which we've been talking about today. And it's more of a method or approach to teaching that uses instructional interventions and techniques. And it gives proven strategies for teachers to use, and they could reach that 20% of diverse learners. And the instruction extends additional support to all students, and it takes the guesswork out of reaching unique learners, which has been a challenge of the past. And it also considers cultural and linguistic responsiveness, which is links back to perennialism. But it is not a curriculum, and a lot of people get confused. It just supports the traditional skills that teachers have always been teaching. There's a few components to RTI that you'll see, and that's a student-centered classroom and student engagement, which links back to romantic naturalism. It's a multi-level collaboration of teacher, student, and family. Flexible groupings and learning centers, and it accommodates to the diverse learners' needs. I have a worksheet that I think I would like to pass out so that you guys can follow along with the lesson. I'm sorry, I should have passed those out ahead of time. You guys could just pass these along. So the three important components can be really anything that you think is important throughout the presentation. It doesn't have to be these four core concepts. So frequent assessment is designed for all students, and it's a baseline assessment of every student's abilities and challenges. It's also used for early identification of learning disabilities and behavioral needs, such as the PBIS that we had just discussed. It uses balanced assessments that monitor students movement up and down in the tier system, which we will look at shortly here. And the data can be used for further research of the program, and it can also validate the system's effectiveness because children are improving. Immediate response is a preventative approach that helps students before they lack and fall way behind in school. The focus is really on the fidelity of the implementation, which means that you need really dedicated teachers to follow through with this. The selection of tools that the teacher can use are evidence-based, and it identifies and builds upon the student's strengths. Timely modifications can maximize student gains and improvements so that we're not waiting until they're like 2 years behind in their academic learning. And finally, collaboration is a multi-level collaborative meetings, and the teachers collaborate with the students and their families so they get that support at home, and they also collaborate with each other and the administration. And then they have a school leadership team which unites districts and oversees all teachers. And this unified approach allows teachers to learn from each other, which is really an advantage because in the past every teacher was just kind of trial and error and working on their own to try to meet those needs. So teachers make informed decisions now about instruction, transitioning between levels, preventative measures, and identifying disabilities.
Hey, hello everyone, I'm Ms. Niska, in case anyone wasn't here last time. So as a quick recap, I'm just going to show you a model of RTI. And so response to intervention is a multi-tier approach. And it's based on, so it's a multi-tier approach, and it's based on the scientific methods, and it uses the screening to monitor the progress of the students. So the effective instruction uses differentiated instruction. The frequent assessment is for all students. The immediate response is a preventative measure instead of waiting for the kids to fall behind. And the collaboration connects teachers, students, and families, as well as unites districts. So, does anybody have any questions before we move on? Okay. Now I would like to show you the 3 tiers of the intervention pyramid. And the bottom tier is for all students with the differentiated instruction. And here 80% of the students learn proficiently. And for those who are struggling, they move up to tier 2, and that's around 15% of the students will need this additional support, and they will be able to successfully achieve their learning. And then for the last tier, the top tier, is for about 5% of the students, and it is an intensive intervention, and it's a one-on-one intervention method. And here you can see as the size of the group gets smaller, the intensity grows. I have a short clip to help explain how the tiers work.
Here, we'll look at a 3-tiered model, often depicted as a triangle, as one example of how a tiered framework can be used as a school-wide strategy for instructing all students. All students will participate in Tier 1 instruction. At this level, they'll receive effective differentiated instruction provided by the general classroom teacher as part of an evidence-based core curriculum. The evidence-based instruction offered at this level can be expected to meet the learning needs of 80 to 85% of all students. For students who don't respond adequately to Tier 1 instruction, more intensive interventions come into play. Tier 2 interventions build upon the differentiated instruction provided at Tier 1 by offering students more systematic instruction and interventions strategically designed to help them catch up in areas of difficulty. These interventions are usually delivered to a small group of students within the general classroom, either by the classroom teacher or by another team member supporting the teacher who has also been trained to deliver the interventions. Tier 2 interventions will be offered to the 15% of students for whom Tier 1 instruction was not sufficiently intensive to meet their specific learning needs. But here is a critical point. Students who receive targeted Tier 2 interventions continue to participate in general Tier 1 instruction. Tier 2 interventions do not replace the full curriculum, they supplement it. For example, Dennis has been selected to receive Tier 2 interventions based on the results of recent reading fluency data. He'll continue to participate in the 90 minutes of core reading instruction that is provided to all students in Tier 1 each day. But in addition, he'll spend another 30 minutes per day receiving targeted reading instruction at Tier 2. Under RTI, his opportunities for learning and for catching up to his classmates will have been extended. We've saved the most intensive interventions available for the small percentage of students who still lag significantly behind their peers in making academic gains. Tier 3 interventions supplement the previous tiers by providing the most intensive evidence-based interventions delivered to individual students or in very small groups. Again, the intensity of instruction at this level increases. The size of student groups is reduced, and their opportunities for direct instruction extended. Interventions in Tier 3 may be delivered by an intervention specialist or even a special education teacher. But again, these interventions supplement the instruction provided at Tier 1, not replace it. And students do not have to be identified as disabled in order to receive these interventions. Only about 5% of all students will require these intensive Tier 3 interventions. Of these students, only a portion may go on to require special ed services.
Okay, so just a couple of points to emphasize. RTI is a multidimensional system, and it benefits the learners as well as those who implement it.
So originally, RTI was made to identify children with learning disabilities or behavior issues, and over time it was found to be able to be applied to the areas of math and reading. And currently now they've kind of integrated it into like all activities and all learning. So now it can help diverse learners, it aids in college prep, the learning disabilities, which could lead to IEP. English language learners, students exceeding the benchmark, so then there's extra supplementary information that can challenge them. And the general student population obviously gets that Tier 1. And then the data can also be used for research. There's support for the teachers, and then they're also able to more easily monitor their students' needs. And then it unites school districts by having that leadership team.
So RTI is really designed to be a flexible plan, and the districts can kind of adapt the system to best fit their needs. And a good example of this is Wisconsin. It's currently expanding through Wisconsin, and I think it's come to Douglas County about 3 years ago. So Northern Lights is implementing the program in literacy over the past 3 years, and they're just starting it in their math program now. So it's really just expanding, and it's just really taking off at this point. But converting is a lengthy process, and it has multiple staff trainings, and the transition time takes about a year. And then the school must implement the program for another year before they have any results that they can show that they're actually improving. And then they can apply to be recognized as a school of merit or a school of distinction. And there are only 11 schools in Wisconsin that are currently recognized. And you can check that out on the website, the RTI website of Wisconsin. And the closest one that we have is the Northwestern Elementary in Maple. So they're actually recognized. So they're probably one of the most advanced schools so far. So here we have Wisconsin's RTI, and then here's the national model. And you can notice that Wisconsin has brought culturally responsive to the core of the system, and the national model has database decision making. And that kind of moved into, these are kind of hard to read, but this says collaboration, balanced assessment, and high quality instruction. So then the system of support is all around it. And with collaboration, one thing I wanted to mention really quick here is that because they're core concepts, like each time you hear about it, someone might refer to one of the concepts as a different thing. So effective instruction could be multi-level prevention system, or it could be high quality instruction. The same with the other ones, you can see how they relate. So can anyone think of why Wisconsin might want to center on culturally responsive instruction while the national model centers on database decision making? Yes?
Well, having grown up somewhere else, it seems like there's a greater First Nations population here, so I imagine that would maybe be a reason.
Yes, I think that could definitely be a reason. Anyone else have any thoughts? My thoughts were just that maybe the state focuses on culturally responsive instruction because their goal is to meet the students' needs. So they can focus on that, and on the national level, database decision making, it supports their goal, which would be the functional design and making sure that the data improves education for the students. But it's kind of nice that everybody can just adapt the program to whatever best fits their needs. I just wanted to touch quickly on differentiated instruction of Tier 1, linking back to our presentation from last week. And so just as a refresher, differentiated instruction just kind of offers alternative ways to get some information across. So maybe the traditional way might have been to use flashcards and you just memorize 5 times 7 is 35. And there's multiple ways you could do it. You could add 5s and 7s. You could count by 5s, or use the block method where they do that in the elementary school, or you could just, actually count out each one and count all the way up to 35. So all these different instructions kind of help different learners to reach their needs. And a different kind of way that I thought maybe differentiated instruction was used is even in kindergarten, so we might not realize that we're doing it, but when you teach the alphabet, you're singing the ABCs, you're showing and writing the letters, and then you make associations with images, like A is for apple, or in my daughter's kindergarten class, they have like Callie the cat, that's like one of her favorite ones. And there's like a story and a song, and it's like all associated with the letter C. So I was going to have you guys do a short group activity. So on the back of your worksheet, you could just do it with the people at your table. You could try to think of a scenario during a learning experience where offering multiple methods of instruction, as in differentiated instruction, can help a learner to achieve their goal. And try to think of maybe 3 different ways. So it can be, it could just be another example of math, or it could be something like that, or it could even just be a hypothetical situation that you guys could think about.
So I can find something to learn multiple ways.
No doubt. I felt it.
I'm just wondering if there's any other.
Well, you learn everything there.
Like, if there's a specific thing you can learn. Then what else would you
First Nations presence. So like that's something that taught in our curriculum, and I think the thing that Wisconsin tries to make part of the curriculum.
Literally, halfway through.
like with that same
Like as you know, like part of the curriculum, you need to use First Nations discussions as part of the
Yeah, there you go.
like visual. But believe it or not, more It's like New Hampshire.
Dollar bills,
Where you have to read it.
It is awesome. It's
Well, some kind of unique level. Most goes in your car.
But like New Hampshire is the most homogeneous city as kind of.
We actually have
There's
all of these.
Well,
no,
with
and
Josh and Braden.
Maine and Vermont are probably there's almost no cultural versus in New Hampshire. The way they state Yeah, I was gonna say. West.
That's really. That's fantastic, aren't they? Here, I feel like this will get to the discussion. Keep some of those.
Maybe I was different.
They're literally like deer turds.
Did everyone get a chance to think of something? Let's start over here.
Keep
Did
the
you guys
juices.
come up with a scenario, or do you guys need more time?
We're gonna use that.
And then you could either read about it, go out, like watch a video, or you can build models.
Great. Put you guys in the back.
Okay, we came up with like learning the United States and all the different states. Like there's a song that you can use that's good for memorizing. And then like coloring a map would be good for like visual or like hands-on learners. And then we couldn't think of a third one though.
Well, how about like the puzzles? You can do the puzzles too in like 3 pieces.
That'd be a hands-on one then. Yeah.
That's a very good, very good. Next in the back.
We came up with like learning the rainbow, like Roy G. Biv.
Great.
We've been working with money in Mrs. Grunsky's class lately, and rather than just talking about it, we've actually had $1 bill, $5 bill, 10s and 20s, and we've also had 100 pennies, 10 dimes, 20 nickels, and we've been showing the kids how all of that breaks down. And we go even further with it. Well, if already these 10 dimes make this dollar, how much would make $5 and so on.
Great.
So.
Great. Thank you.
We were learning how to dribble a basketball between your legs, and with that you could like read instructions, like if you're a person who needs the written instructions on how to do it, or you could watch a video with the images able to teach you how to do it, or you could have like a one-on-one with somebody who's actually like physically teaching you.
Great. Thank you.
And last group, we were discussing if you were studying rocks, you could either go figure out which rocks they were, kind of guided instructions. You could read it from a book, or you could do in the classroom a puzzle.
Great. Great. Thank you guys. So I guess the burning question that I had all along when I was doing my research was, well, does RTI really work? And I found one example, and I took it from Northwestern School, and there was one classroom the teacher has it posted on the Wisconsin RTI website if you'd like to find out some more about it. But she had a classroom where 6 students were not meeting the bench level performance. So she moved all of them up to tier 2, and it was like 20-minute session each day of the week for a couple weeks. And during that time, 4 of the students were able to meet the learning standards, and then by the next assessment, all 6 students benchmarked, so our whole class met like the learning benchmark. So it was really great. So hopefully, I think over time we'll be able to find out more about RTI and how it can help the students learn. So I just had one final question for you. Just really quick about our worksheets here. We're gonna, don't worry about the bottom part with the compare and contrast, and for time issues, we're just gonna have a final assessment question on the back of your page that each person can do. And so based on our discussion today and what you've learned about education, can you think of the 3 concepts or factors and just explain a little bit about why they're important? So it can be really anything that we've talked about. They don't have to be just the core concepts.